In Tarrant County, some individuals actively seek out opportunities to interfere with law enforcement during service calls, film the encounters, and post them to YouTube, where the footage is monetized. The current criminal penalty for interference with public duties is a Class B misdemeanor, and this bill simply moves to a state jail felony.
In Tarrant County, I know of one individual who's been arrested 8 times for obstructing peace officers responding to emergencies. SB 1208 seeks to deter this behavior, which has a low criminal penalty now, by increasing the penalty for the offense of interference with a peace officer's or a public official's public duties. It increases it from a Class B misdemeanor to a state jail felony. You talk to any police officer, any firefighter, any emergency medical personnel, anywhere in the state of Texas, and they will tell you that this problem is increasing dramatically. As I mentioned, some people are actually getting paid for the more postings they do. They get a following, that type of thing. But it's increasing. It's placing not only our government personnel, our first responders, in danger, but it's placing the people they're trying to deal with in even greater danger. And the Class B misdemeanor is obviously not deterring it. So the only common sense thing you can do is bump up the punishment and hope that that begins to be a deterrent. The other nice thing about bumping it up, when you get to a state jail felony, you had a lot of other options that you can do to try to deal with that person, from community supervision to a number of other things that may not be available for a simple Class B non-enhanceable offense.
Community supervision isn't available for a Class B?
No, I know it can be, but other things aren't necessarily available that are available with parole and probation and other things.
A few Texas politicians are trying to turn the interference or obstruction charge, also known as piss off the police charge, from a misdemeanor to a felony. Now, these proposed changes were spearheaded by the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office out of Fort Worth, Texas, because frankly, they were tired of how people were exercising their First Amendment rights. Apparently, speech and videotaping the police are just too much to handle. The changes under Texas Penal Code 3815, obstruction or interference with public duties, will be amended under the Senate Bill 1208 and also under House Bill 3565. The author of Senate Bill 1208 is none other than Senator of District 10, Phil King, who also happens to be a former police officer and captain with the Fort Worth Police Department. And it's no coincidence that the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office out of Fort Worth came to Mr. King and recommended these changes made because they were tired, again, of how people exercise their First Amendment rights. Senate Bill 1208 passed quietly in the Texas Senate, but not without important questions being raised.
I just want to make certain that we're real clear on this, because if for some reason a citizen is arrested because they are taping an incident that an officer is involved in, that's not interfering with that officer, correct?
That's correct. In fact, there is a defense to prosecution, which functions like a affirmative defense, as you know, a defense to prosecution to the statute that says that conduct intended to warn a person operating motor vehicle of the presence of a peace officer is not a violation, nor is the interruption, disruption, impediment, or interference consisting only of speech. So speech alone does not violate the offense of interference.
Okay, let's make sure, again, speech alone does not violate. So do you consider, if I were to say that you're a police officer and you're engaged in arresting someone and I had my video camera out?
Well, the Penal Code actual wording says, for interference with public duties, a person commits an offense if the person with criminal negligence, as the mens rea, interrupts, disrupts, impedes, or otherwise interferes with a peace officer while the peace officer is performing a duty or exercising authority. And again, it has that affirmative defense that it cannot be.
So you don't
speech.
consider, if I'm videotaping, is that disrupting, is that violating that statute in any way?
Mere videotaping would not violate the statute.
Okay, so if for some reason this issue comes up and a citizen is arrested by a police officer for doing that, I want to make certain that we take this conversation and put it on a journal so someone would be able to use that as what your intent is as it relates to this particular offense.
So,
You're okay with that, aren't you?
yes, I agree with that, but I want to clarify that I'm not changing the interference statute. So the mens rea and the actus reus, the mental state and the criminal act are not being changed. That together
No, I
constitute
understand
the
that.
offense.
What you're doing,
All I'm doing is enhancing
changing the penalty. You're changing the penalty. And
Yes.
so from that vantage point, I want to make certain it's not your intent in changing the penalty. To make certain that if a citizen is videotaping a police officer that's arresting someone, that's not considered to be interfering with the police officer and in violation of this particular statute. So the person would be then eligible for a state jail felony. That's what I'm trying to make certain of.
Right, and you are correct in saying that I'm not doing anything that changes the statute itself, the mens rea or the actus reus. I am enhancing the penalty, and I agree with you that under the statute, as it is now and as it would be if the bill passes, that simply videotaping an officer or simply speaking to an officer does not constitute, under the statute, interference with someone performing public duties.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, there you have it. Mere speech alone and videotaping the police are not considered to be interference with public duties, and he's on record for saying so, the author of this bill. But we all know that this is not how this works, and this is not how this applies in the real world. In the real world, a police officer will get pissed off because cop watchers are not standing where they want them to be, or they want them to be out of the way, or they just want them not around at all, period. And they will go to extreme lengths to make sure that these people who record the police or these people who say things that they may not like and arrest them on the piss off the cops charge, which is also known as Texas Penal Code 3815, interference with public duties, which used to be a misdemeanor that carried a penalty up to 180 days in jail and a $2,000 fine, which, if this passes, now raises that consequence, that penalty or that punishment up to a felony, which carries up to 2 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. And also with a state jail felony, you will lose your gun rights and voting rights. So this is a very big deal. And if you really think for a second that cops are just not going to make up a BS charge just to put somebody behind bars, then you're mistaken. And for that, I'm going to include some examples here that would put these individuals in a felony state because these cops did not like how these individuals were recording or using their free speech, which is protected.
Backup's got a hell of a mustache.
Listen, man, go over there with him on that side. Sir, they've already I need you both on the same side, okay?
Is that a lawful order?
Yes, because I have to be able to watch you both.
That's not a law.
I need you over there.
What's your
on
name?
that side.
What's your name?
Sir?
What's your name?
Sir?
What are you going to do to me if I don't?
Sir?
What?
Will you please walk to that side for me?
Voluntarily? No. If you're telling me you're going to do something violent to me if I don't, then sure, I'll comply with whatever you tell me
I
to
just
do.
need you at a safe distance so I can keep eyes on both of you.
Okay. If you're telling me that you're going to do something violent if I don't do what you're saying, then I'll do it. Otherwise, I'm going to continue what I'm doing. So what's...
I'm telling you, I just need you guys both over on that side.
You need or want?
I need you.
Okay, and so if I don't...
I can control where you are if you're going to be this close to my partner.
And so if I don't do what you tell me to do, what are you going to do?
You can go to jail for interference.
Okay, I will or I can?
You can. I'm giving you the opportunity. I don't want to put you in
Okay,
jail.
but if I don't move, you're going to take me to jail?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and your name is?
Hartman.
Hartman, and your badge number?
987.
If we can get him called off immediately as well. If somebody wanted to hurt your officers, they'd be hurt. Okay. Look, I appreciate it. Thank you. We got Goff here calling for the supervisor. See, he needs to back off. Back him off now. Back him off. Back him off. Don't move. Guys, get off of him. Don't touch me. Get off of him. Get back. Get off. Get your hand off your gun. God, you're an idiot.
Now that's just a quick clip of James Freeman and David Bourne, who were both filming the police and not interfering in any way. And the encounter escalated once the officer tried to tell James Freeman where to record, even though he was a good distance away and not interfering at all. Things really took a turn when David Bourne walked around a traffic stop and started walking back as an officer started to approach him. The officer was trying to get him to go back where he came from. And even though David Bourne kept backing up, the officer charged him and arrested him for obstruction and interference and resisting arrest. The obstruction and interference charge was eventually thrown out, and he was convicted of resisting arrest. Now, that doesn't make sense to me. How can you be convicted of resisting arrest when the basis of the arrest was unlawful? I don't know. You might have to explain that one to me. So here is the meeting with the House bill author, David Cook, and how he explains why this penalty for this interference charge should be enhanced.
Chair lays out House Bill 3565 and recognizes Chairman Cook to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Louderback and members for the opportunity to present House Bill 3565. I'll be quick. I know that others are waiting, but basically, currently under Section 38.15A of the Penal Code, a person commits the Class B misdemeanor offense of interference with public duties if they disrupt, interrupt, impede, or interfere with the following public servants while they are conducting their official duties: peace officers or police canines, EMS and fire, animal control, and county public health, environmental, radiation, or safety officials. For these public servants, every day and every counter on the job is inherently dangerous, as you know, Chairman. Specifically for law enforcement, when an officer is working a traffic stop or accident scene, dealing with an outside party who is screaming or encroaching the officer's physical space can cause unnecessary distractions and escalation. Additionally, the officer may have to call for backup to deal with the outside party, taking precious resources away from other emergency calls. In Tarrant County, some individuals actively seek out opportunities to interfere with law enforcement during service calls, film the encounters, and post them to YouTube where the footage is monetized. The current criminal penalty for interference with public duties is a Class B misdemeanor, and this bill simply moves to a state jail felony. While the First Amendment protects the right to film law enforcement interactions, the right should not extend to behavior which obstructs a public servant's ability to do their job. Members, I'll be glad to answer any questions. This bill was brought to us by the Tarrant County District Attorney Phil Sorrells' office, and would be glad to answer any questions. Would like an opportunity to close when appropriate. And this bill has been passed by the Senate in the form of Senate Bill 1208 and is in the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee at this time.
Members, any questions for Chairman Cook?
I know that we're, thank you, Chairman Louderback.
Let me get,
yeah.
Please show Representative Bowers in attendance.
Thank you. I know we're short on time, so just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
You don't touch any of the conduct related to interference.
That's correct.
This is just the
We
penalty.
strike three
Just a
words
straight
and
penalty
swap out
enhancement. Okay.
Class B misdemeanor with state jail felony. That's
Got
it. Yeah.
And does the Senate bill is identical to that? It doesn't
Yeah.
tinker with the underlying offense?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair calls William Vassar. Sir, we show you registered as William Vassar, Assistant Criminal District Attorney. Let's see. Phil Sorrells, Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're here today, you represent who we said, and you're testifying on for against House Bill 3565.
For Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my name is Bill Vassar. I've been a prosecutor at the Tarrant County DA's office for over 22 years, and I want to tell you all what I've been telling the juries the past 2 years when I've been trying these cases. Nobody is saying you can't film the police. Sadly, whether we like it or not, nobody is saying you can't cuss, scream at, or antagonize the police. What we are saying is you just can't interfere with their ability to investigate a case. What we are seeing in Tarrant County are individuals are inserting themselves on traffic stops. They're inserting themselves on domestic violence investigations. They're inserting themselves on warrant service, where police officers are trying to arrest violent fugitives. They're running up to police officers with their cameras. They are screaming at them. They are cussing at them. They're demanding their name and badge number, and they are physically getting in their investigation. And the problem with that is it's a public safety issue, because I'm amazed in the 20 or 30 cases that I've dealt with in Tarrant County that nobody's gotten hurt.
No one's gotten hurt? I think Carolyn Rodriguez would like to have a word. And in fact, Your Fort Worth officer, Kruger, slammed her to the ground and hospitalized her. And then eventually Kruger got fired over the incident. So to say no one's gotten hurt over the incident is just a far cry. Maybe you forgot about that one incident that happened last year.
So why do we need to make this a felony? Because we are just having the same group of people are getting arrested over and over again. A couple days in the Tarrant County Jail is worth it for them to post it on YouTube and make money off of it. So we're very in support of this bill. I would just ask that you consider this, because I think we really need to give our men and women in blue just a little breathing room when they're conducting investigations, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any members, any questions?
Just real quick, and
Matt Moody.
thank you very much, Chairman. I appreciate that. If we're talking about law enforcement, frontline law enforcement, I'm just looking through the statute. A1, peace officer. A2 is emergency medical services. A3 is firefighter. A4 is the peace officer's service and the animal, the canine with them. A5 has to do with transmission. If this is really targeted to frontline law enforcement, maybe the penalty enhancement should be for certain ones of these and not the entire group of them. But if it's to be broader as the whole statute, because statute is more than just peace officers.
Sure.
It's a whole bunch of interaction. And it may be their position that it should apply to all of these, but I just, the examples keep being peace officer or peace officer. So, just a thought. I don't know if we want to look at stair-stepping that penalty when we're talking about frontline law enforcement, or if we want to go to everybody that's covered under the statute. And we can talk about that later. I know we're short on time, but just a thought.
Sure. And I'll tell you, the only thing that I've seen personally in Tarrant County are our frontline officers.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Representative Little.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Mr. Vassar, I had similar concern to Representative Moody. I think you could probably tailor this to peace officers in A1 and be better off. Certainly, I agree with you. It can endanger officers. One of the concerns that I have is the breadth of the statute as it relates to interrupting, disrupting, impeding, or otherwise interfering with. And it seems to me that captures a broad range of conduct, right? How are peace officers trained on what constitutes a violation of this provision? Because it's pretty easy to imagine an interruption of a peace officer.
Sure.
And it certainly different from an assault or a true interference preventing a police officer from handcuffing somebody or something along those lines. So can you just explain that to me?
Sure, and I can explain what Fort Worth PD is training their officers to do.
Okay.
Fort Worth PD is telling their officers, find a line of demarcation, meaning that chair right there. Sir, you're welcome to film over there, but you've got to stay by that chair, okay? So that's what we are training them to do. The problem is, these individuals are not doing that, right? These officers are having to say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, you've got to stand over there. They give individuals multiple times, and then they finally say, look, if you do it one more time, we're going to arrest you. So these officers are trained to really, tell them to stay over there, be calm with them. They're welcome to film, but they've got to get out of their investigation.
Let's take a quick look at that Fort Worth Regiment training that these officers are doing to establish this demarcation or breathing room, for that example. Now, in my opinion, yes, I do believe officers need their space to operate and to investigate. Now, the thing about reasonable distance applies here. Now, there's nothing reasonable about this next clip. In fact, let's take a look.
Back to that side.
Call your supervisor, Bingo. Call your supervisor.
This is the second time.
There's no law that says that.
Back there, it's reasonable space.
No, is no such thing as a reasonable
Do
space.
not move beyond
What
this.
crimes you take this?
No, I don't have to.
I can walk down the f***ing sidewalk, dude. It's not illegal to walk down the sidewalk.
Sidewalk, but you are not allowed to interfere.
I am walking down the sidewalk.
You can stay right here if you want.
I'm walking that way to the f***ing store. The f*** are you talking about?
Sir, you cannot move past.
I can walk down the f***ing sidewalk. Is it true or not?
You cannot.
Is it true or not? Can I walk down the public sidewalk,
You've been
yes or
warned
no?
multiple times. It's your choice.
Can
not to
I
do
walk down? So you're making me stand right here.
that. Yes, investigation.
Your investigation. How about that? So you're telling me I can't walk down that way? Okay. Can I or not? No, that's not how this works, man. Call your supervisor. Call your supervisor. You cannot.
Sir, you don't resist me.
I'm not resisting. What you're doing is illegal.
Now, if this bill were to pass, this would make anyone a felon just because this police officer didn't like how someone was filming or using their First Amendment rights. Now, I'm all for giving police officers breathing room or a reasonable amount of space for them to conduct their investigation or handle their police matters. However, there are going to be some officers that abuse that breathing room or that demarcation line by trying to make individuals stand 30, 40, 50, even 100 feet away from the particular incident. In fact, that's exactly what happened with Justin Pulliam when he was arrested at this location when the incident was over there. And he was also arrested for interference with public duties.
Okay, thank you. Chairman.
Representative Little, Bowers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Little, as well. Thank you for your testimony, and I guess I just have questions about the line of demarcation.
Sure.
And, like, what is the number, or is there a space that you think is significant?
So there's no bright line rule, and I think Florida right now is trying to pass maybe a 10 or 15 yard barrier, but in Texas we don't have a bright line rule. So what Fort Worth PD is trying to say, pick a tree, pick a line in the concrete or a car, something roughly 10 yards for them to stay behind and film. And what's really amazing to me is that it's pretty impressive that when our officers are getting screamed at, that they are able to remain calm, say, look, sir, you're welcome to film over there. You just got to stand over there.
Thank you, and I appreciate that because I guess I'm thinking about the de-escalation in that point
Sure.
in time when that person comes up and sees something that they think is out of line or whatnot. And, you know, I think about my own family that's in law enforcement and that it could create a public safety issue. But I also have concerns because I feel like if they're filming and if no one catches it, then when something is out of line and it would not be reported, it would go unreported.
Absolutely. And again, in what I've been telling juries the past 2 years, nobody's saying you can't film. That is 2025. We have that right. Everybody has cell phones. It's just if an officer is conducting a traffic stop, right, and I'm the officer and I'm talking to somebody in a car, you can't be right here with a phone in my face screaming at me,
Sure.
right? And because what happens, obviously, is the officer turns to address that individual. Now they're not worrying about their investigation.
Right. Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
ADA Vassar, let me see if I can touch on exactly what's going on here. In open air investigations or open air inquisitions, wherever we're being called for service, if you direct someone to go behind that chair, in an open air, they simply move the chair.
Right.
So it usually results very, very decidedly into a call for additional units. And we actually are running into situations where investigations can't continue until other units get there, hold a crowd back, or a developing crowd situation. So these things are ever growing, especially in open air areas. So where crowds have congregated or begin to congregate. So this is would you agree with that? This is what we're seeing over and over again?
Absolutely, and it's also a resource situation. 'Cause
Absolutely.
A recent case that I tried, it was merely a DWI investigation, and we had 2 people showing up filming. Well, now because it's one officer with a DWI investigation, we have to have backup, right? Oftentimes these interference cases, they turn into resisting cases. That is additional officers. In addition, these people, as part of their play with the police, then they're demanding a supervisor. So then that means a sergeant or a lieutenant now has to come out to the scene to deal with that person. So in lack of a better terms, it's really taking officers off the street.
Very, very common. Thank you. Representative Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman Louderback. So, have you seen an increase in this and like over what time period? And I guess because, as you said, ADA, that we're looking at now people have cell phones. And
Right.
So.
I would say and I'm just going to speak to Tarrant County and Fort Worth, I would say the past 2 years, this is really becoming a problem. And they kind of work in a network because they all have YouTube channels. So they'll be in Fort Worth one weekend, they'll be in Houston the next, then they'll be in Austin, because, you know, they're monetizing this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much.
Chair calls Kirsten Budwine. Morning. We show you registered as Kirsten Budwine from the Texas Civil Rights Project.
Yes, sir.
And you are testifying on for or against House Bill 3565?
Against.
Against.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
HB 3565 increases the criminal penalty for the offense of interference with public duties from a Class B, which is 180 days in jail, up to a $2,000 fine, to a state jail felony, which is up to 2 years in jail and a $10,000 fine. Interfering with public duties is broadly defined as a person who interrupts, disrupts, impedes, or otherwise interferes with a peace officer while the officer is performing a duty. People who film the police or protest are often charged with this offense. Protesting and recording police officers are both protected speech under the First Amendment and should not be considered felonious conduct. As the previous witness stated, there is no bright line rule for uniform training for this type of offense. I'm aware of situations where officers who do not want to be filmed, period, or at all, have used this as a weapon against the person who is filming. We are completely against trying to increase the criminal penalties for what is not only protected speech, but what is oftentimes nonviolent conduct that poses no threat to law enforcement. This will have a chilling effect on the rights that we all hold near and dear to us. People will be deterred from holding officers accountable and protesting in fear of being stamped as a felon for the rest of their lives. Rather than punishing citizens for the nonviolent conduct, we should be encouraging this type of conduct. For these reasons, we are opposed to that was the identical bill, HB 3565. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Now, if it's not apparent or obvious, I deeply oppose this bill. In fact, we should just scorch earth it, because to enhance the criminal penalty for something that cops routinely abuse by charging individuals for interfering just by simply recording or using speech is unacceptable.
Step out of the car for me.
When Keller Police Sergeant Blake Shamanik pulled over 22-year-old Dylan Poente for making a wide right turn.
Face that direction.
Dylan was on his way to his grandmother's house when he was stopped in the Riverdance neighborhood.
Why are you acting so suspicious? Well, you're rolling your window up when I'm walking up on scene for a routine traffic stop. Ain't nothing going on.
Body camera video shows the sergeant ask Dylan to get out of the car before he places him in handcuffs. In a report, Shamanik says he detained Dylan because he was worried about his safety.
That's my dad.
Shortly after, Dylan's dad, Marco Poente, pulled up.
He was ticketed and taken to jail for a wide right turn.
Marco was across the street from the scene.
You're about to be arrested for blocking the roadway if you don't park and get out.
I rolled
Park over there.
After obeying the order to move his vehicle, Marco started recording his son's arrest on his cell phone.
Just watch him.
Watch me what? Watch me stand here?
Shamanik then instructed Officer Ankit Tomar to arrest Marco, too.
Arrest him.
For what?
For blocking the roadway.
The officer didn't like me being there recording anything.
Put your phone down. Put your hands behind your head.
Hey, Russ, I hope you got this on video. This guy's arresting me for just standing here. And now he's taking my phone away.
So they tried to take me down and pepper sprayed me. And
dude, oh my God.
I mean, it was a fiasco.
But in a new lawsuit against the two officers, it says Keller police leadership called the use of force and arrest of Marco Poente inappropriate. 2 days later, an apology.
The chief of police called me up on the phone and issued an apology.
Keller police was quick to provide WFAA documents into their investigation of this incident, but say they cannot publicly comment due to the ongoing lawsuit.
Marco is not a criminal. This was a man, a concerned father. And if this can happen to him, like I said earlier, it can really happen to anyone.
4 years ago, out of Keller, Texas, a man was across the street filming his son's traffic stop when he was arrested and pepper sprayed from interfering. I know, interfering from across the street. He later filed a lawsuit and it settled for $200,000. Now, with that in mind, if this bill were to pass from a misdemeanor to a felony, that man would have been charged with a felony and he would have not been able to file a lawsuit because he would be having a state jail felony. And if you have a state jail felony, there's a provision that prevents lawsuits from proceeding. So it's stuck, meaning you would have to have that interference charge resolved before proceeding with a lawsuit. Now, they could amend the bill and say that if someone physically interferes, a peace officer from conducting their duties or conducting an investigation, then that person should be charged with a felony. And I would be inclined to agree. However, for someone who is just simply using speech and videotaping from a distance, a reasonable distance, they should not be charged with a felony. And with that, I encourage you to reach out to your state representatives and let them know how horrible of an idea this bill is and to just scorch earth this bill. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. And I will also keep you guys updated on the progress of this bill. And hopefully it gets struck down in calendars. And if not, hopefully it gets thrown out in the House. Until then, you guys stay safe. Batosai out.